As you know, my name is Mike Gagnon. I'm here with the great and powerful Kyle Winston. Does that always say your name? Is it Winston or Winston?
Winston.
Winston with a
I
T.
always like to say like the cigarettes, diamonds, and flowers. I'm not related to any of them or I wouldn't be sitting here today.
I know, I hear you. I tell people, they're like, what's a market going to do? I said, if I have a crystal ball, I would not be talking with you. I'd be on a yacht. And I'd probably let all my secrets go, so you'd probably be on the yacht next to me. But, at the end of the day, that's what we'd be doing.
Yep.
So we're here today, and what we're going to be talking about is basically if I, as a real estate professional, were to decide to sell my house this spring, what would I be doing right now in order to make sure that when June rolls around, I can sell for the highest price with the least inconvenience in the shortest time possible once I get these things together. And we're kind of equating it to spring training because we all know the Red Sox, they don't just, roll into the ballpark and hit home runs and that kind of stuff. So it's like, this is it, the training. And so what we wanted to do is bring in some folks that if I were selling my house, who I'd be talking to right now and what corners I'd be trying to look around. And one of the important ones is title.
Yeah.
And so Kyle is a title rep. And what does that even mean?
So I am one of the folks in our office that works with realtors and works with lenders to try to bring business in. So our goal is to provide a smooth and successful real estate transaction and doing that closing ourselves. So it's my job within the organization to work with realtors and work with lenders and then facilitate the transaction myself.
Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. So what's that job like?
It's funny. So my career started in the education space and then in the nonprofit world. And a lot of what I've taken in those experiences, I'm able to apply in this job, in this role. So closings, we always shoot for a smooth, easy transaction. And as anyone in the real estate world knows, it's not always the case. Dealing with the general public, sometimes there are surprises.
Right.
And I think one of the most important things that I can bring to a closing table is that I just don't panic. I bring the perspective of, spending many years working at the Boys and Girls Club of Manchester. When a kid is in your office because his dad got shot in a drug deal gone wrong, it's a lot easier to handle when maybe something wasn't recorded properly and we need to or like changing the name on a mortgage.
Right.
That can get fixed. So that's going to get solved. We're going to get that across the closing table. So just being able to kind of stay cool and calm under pressure, I think is probably one of my biggest assets that I provide at the closing table.
A lot of perspective, right?
Yeah.
I hear you. Well, that's exactly what I want to talk to you about because those little hiccups are stuff that possibly could be avoided if you start the process early enough.
Absolutely.
Right. So, you're right. They're not the end of the world. And I love the fact that the real estate timeline tends to be like, all right, I need an extra day or I need an extra 2 days to fix something like this. But it would be really great if we didn't have to worry about that. So that's kind of what the perspective that we're taking with this program is like, okay, when do I talk to a title person? Kyle, should I be calling you before I list my house or when I list my house? Or, ideally, if it was a perfect world for you, when would I be in contact with you?
Before you list is great. There are different things along the way for a seller. Like I love this analogy of the spring training, right?
Yeah.
By the time you're working with title, like it's probably your last spring training game. Like we are really ready to go.
Sure.
But the things that you really want to focus on as a seller is just making sure that there's nothing on title that's going to be preventing this sale. So we're going to discover that throughout the process. But before we even get there, in order to kind of be prepared to sell, I always like to make sure that you have all of your documents and your ducks in a row.
Sure.
Many people selling today are selling in the name of a trust, selling in the name of an LLC. Well, when it's time to sell we need that paperwork. We need to see that paperwork. We need to make sure that everything is kosher and good to go.
Right.
So that when we're at the table, we don't have to worry about, people getting shot and drug deals gone wrong. This is going to be a smooth, easy closing because you've gone to your spring training. That's the ultimate goal.
Exactly. Yeah, that's so. And in terms of timing, it would make sense for us or for the seller of the property to reach out to you very early in the transaction.
Absolutely. It's funny. I'm working on a transaction. The man who actually married me, shout out to Mike, is purchasing a home from his family, which is in the name of a trust.
Okay.
Well, I'm working with the agent right now because we have 6 different trustees.
Oh, geez.
They're all over the place.
Right.
But that's fine. It's easy for me to help coordinate this, A, because I'm so close to the family, but B is now that I know this, I'm already setting up remote closings with the folks that are down in Florida to make sure that they're all set. So then my buddy Mike isn't delayed when it comes to closing.
Right.
Because, we'll call her Aunt Carol hasn't signed the paperwork that she needs to sign.
Yeah.
Well, I'm already in contact with the trustees. We're already set up all of the signings. So then when the buyer is ready, everything on the sell side is taken care of. So then you, the buyer, don't have to worry about a thing.
But that's a perfect example of what it is we're talking about, because there are complexities that are better to be addressed right off the bat than like, oh shoot, Aunt Carol is taking a cruise during the time that we are supposed to be closing, and Uncle Jake, oh by the way, he's on a 3-day hunting excursion in the backwoods and doesn't have access to a phone, or so.
Yeah, or oftentimes too, the Aunt Carol, well, she's in hospice and we don't even know if she's going to make it.
Right, exactly.
Well, then what are we going to do between now, when we even have the contract, to get everything in place so that we don't have to worry about these things?
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the last thing anybody wants, buyer or seller, is to be worrying about something at the last minute.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Now, we also, during these deals, throw around a lot of words and a lot of things that perhaps people that are checking this out aren't familiar with. Like, what exactly is title insurance, and why is that important?
Gosh, so title insurance is so unique because it's the only form of insurance that actually covers you from when you purchase it, moving backwards.
Okay.
Every other form of insurance, you buy it and you're saying, well, in case anything goes wrong in the future, I have my insurance. Well, title insurance is the exact opposite of, in case anything wrong happened before I own this home, I'm covered.
So when you say something wrong, like what would an example of that
So
be?
I think a great example for maybe, this area, we're in the lakes region, right? And we have this beautiful home on a lake, and so does our neighbor. And our neighbors, built this beautiful pool, and they put this pool house there. And maybe that pool house is actually encroaching on my land, right?
Okay. Yeah.
We're going to use our title insurance to figure it out. And if there are any remedies that need to happen because of this encroachment, we're going to be able to figure that out because we have title insurance.
I see.
Yes.
So title insurance would make sense. I used to think it was just for the lender, but if you're doing a cash deal and you didn't have title insurance and there was an encroachment, that would be on you to figure out, right?
Yeah, and what we're seeing most often now, especially with these cash deals, is we actually have a lot of people coming back to us that decline the title insurance and say, no, I want the title insurance
Ouch.
now. And I think the biggest reason why here in the year 2026 is due to fraud.
Yeah.
You can put a fraudulent claim on a title, on a deed, and then be stuck in court for years trying to figure this out.
Right.
There was a vacant land scam in the state of Connecticut where a fraudulent listing happened. It went through, it got on record. Well, the seller, a doctor, was driving by his beautiful piece of land in Connecticut to just check on it.
Yeah.
And $1 million home is now sitting on it.
Yeah, I remember reading about that.
Yeah, so these are instances, if this man didn't have title insurance on his property, he'd be stuck with hundreds of thousands of dollars in legal fees.
Yeah.
Which now that, because he has title insurance, he doesn't have to worry about that.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, it was funny because I know that you also have, we talked late last year, I had a gentleman call me that said that he was the owner of a piece of property, a vacant piece of land. And, he passed a lot of the checks. Vacant land's particularly difficult because, you never necessarily meet the person there. They're calling you. And, they went so far as to send me a picture of their license. And I was like, there's something didn't feel right about it. So I asked Kyle to help me out with it. And you provided some sort of identity verification that was almost impossible to beat or very difficult to beat. And when I sent that to him, it went crickets. I never heard from him again after I asked him to fill out this piece of verification.
Yeah, so we have this certified match, which allows us to verify the identities of sellers, and we use it for all vacant land listings.
Yeah.
And the amount of times where we send that link out either to you as the agent to send to your client, or we send it directly, same exact thing. We never hear from that person ever again.
You know, like it's just getting increasingly difficult for us to make sure that we're doing the job, and the job is continually changing, right? Like, you know, what was fine last month or 3 months ago may no longer be the case. So that's, I guess, one of the reasons why I'm trying to bring it back to what we're talking about. One of the reasons to be sure to talk with the title person. It's funny, I had a deal last year with an undischarged mortgage. Right? It wasn't that it was improperly discharged, right? And so the seller wound up having to pay a couple $100s for a company to discharge it properly.
Yeah, so that's probably the biggest title issue that we see before closing. So, you know, we get the purchase and sales agreement. Our title department is doing all of their research to make sure that we have clean and marketable title.
Right.
If something happens in that time, a seller has 30 days to remedy once the title defect is discovered.
Sure.
In that 30 days, and what we do as a company when we send that email to parties saying, hey, you know, we have 30 days to now remedy this, we'll also oftentimes put right in the email, these are your options. And the most common title defect that we see are those undischarged mortgages or improperly discharged mortgages. And we offer a service called Caddick Track. We would have to then do our underwriting with the company, our underwriter Caddick. But what they'll do is that they'll allow us to continue the process and the closing process, knowing that they're going to be able to find that undischarged mortgage, get it on record.
Right.
And it's only a couple of $100s for us to provide this service, but it also just puts such an ease for everyone that we can continue knowing that we have this service, that we're going to be able to move forward and be able to do the closing.
Right. So that's another example of something that it would be great to get caught, you know, right at the beginning to make sure that if there is any kind of complexity, it can be addressed in a timely manner, and you're not, you know, 5 days away from closing, be like, oh my gosh, we found this undisclosed mortgage and now we need to do that. Although I do like what you're saying about the fact that you can move forward, but it would just be less stress, right?
Yeah, that's the biggest thing, is that just alleviating the stress from folks. And, you know, if it's not something that we will be able to use Caddick for, we'll recommend that you reach out to an attorney to solve these things.
Right.
But we're going to be kind of that first line of defense for your sellers and for your buyers. But I think the biggest thing is, in this spring training, the sooner we have the contract, the sooner we can start our process.
Right, okay.
So even if you're thinking like, oh, you know, we may have to make an addendum down the road, we're not going to give it to you yet. Give it to us now.
Right.
Let us discover everything. So then if a small name change or date change addendum has to come over, we're fine with that, but we're going to have everything else researched and good to go. So then if anything does come up, we have plenty of time to figure it out.
Perfect. Now let me ask you this. If you were to be in the position to sell your property, right, what would you do as a title professional at the beginning?
At the beginning, like I said, the biggest thing is making sure that all your documentation and ducks are in a row.
Right.
As someone who, you know, will say it's me, but maybe I didn't know everything about the property before I bought it.
Yeah.
I'd also be working with my title professional and just going to the registry of deeds and figuring out, is there anything associated with this deed? Is there a mechanics lien? Is there a tax lien? Is there anything associated with this property that I should know about beforehand? In which we would discover for you, you know, just searching your deed, and, you know, and I've seen it a million times. Well, this property, this deed that I'm pulling for you has 7 different tax liens on it.
Ouch.
And this happens all the time where, you know, we have a free deed service where you email deeds@cohenclosing.com. We'll pull you and we'll send you that deed, which you've used before.
Right, of course.
And oftentimes when someone like you is reaching out to me and I'm pulling that deed and I'm seeing the 7, you know, tax liens, and this happened a couple of weeks ago, I reach out to the agent. just so you know. And more times than not, they are very much aware, and they know the situation's going on, and they know something has to be paid before closings. But every once and again, it's, I had no idea.
Right.
So then we start the process of, the conversation. Did you know this? Oh, yeah, well, I haven't paid my taxes since 1986. Okay, let's figure out what we need to do to remedy that before we can even get your property.
And so I think that that's an important point to make, because when you're selling, you're gonna want to know what your financial obligations are, right? So like, let's face it, if you add undischarged tax liens or undischarged liens that you need to take care of at closing, then all of a sudden your money to close may be different, right? And the money that you're going to see at closing is going to be different, which is going to change the whole complexion and ability for you to purchase your next property, right? So that's the other thing that I think is really important.
Absolutely. And I think you kind of touched on something as well that I would love to talk about is the proceeds, right?
Yeah.
And we as a title company, it's our responsibility to make sure that everybody is paid. And that's included making sure that the sellers receive their proceeds. And then also really importantly, that the sellers' previous mortgages are paid off.
Sure.
I think like I was talking about in the year 2026, one of the biggest barriers that we have in real estate and in title, and I guess this barrier maybe not be the best word, but our biggest enemy right now is fraud. And one of the biggest forms of fraud in our industry is wire fraud.
Okay.
So wire fraud really, I think the two biggest things happens for your seller, and it's their proceeds and their mortgage payoff. Where, 20 years ago, the biggest amount of money that was coming to the closing was often an earnest money deposit.
Sure.
Those times are over, and also the fraudsters have gotten smarter, where they used to really target that, but they realize now, well, that's not where the big money is. The big money is in the seller's payoff and the seller's proceeds.
Sure.
So what are you doing to protect yourself as a seller against that? We at Cohen Closing, and there are a couple now title companies in the state, and we really hope that every title company uses this program called Certified. And what Certified does is it scrubs every single one of our wires, insures wires up to $1 million. And what it's going to do, it's going to verify your identity as a seller.
Okay.
It's going to ask you all these KBA questions that only you will know.
Okay.
I went through it just as a test. It asked me for my freshman year of college address when I was at the University of Arizona, which was 18 years ago, which I was lucky to get correct, but I did get it right, but only I would know that. Right? So it's going to scrub all those, confirm your identity. It's going to make sure that your location is true and accurate.
Right.
If you use a VPN, we ask you to remove your VPN, because if you're using a VPN, you'll automatically fail.
Sure.
Once you pass, your identity is confirmed, then we will go ahead and we will send that wire. But the biggest thing for that wire security is your seller payoff. Because if you are not wiring securely a seller payoff, that could not be discovered for months.
Really?
Yeah, because a lot of these mortgage companies no longer have departments for, oh my gosh.
Receipt?
No, for people who haven't paid their mortgage. What do we call that?
Delinquent?
No, even worse than that.
Default?
Yes, people that have defaulted on their mortgage due to...
Kyle and I just invented a new game, by the way.
It's called Guess What's in My Head.
Yeah. Although I can tell you, man, I'm bad.
Yeah.
I'm so bad. Like, yeah.
You got it within 5 guesses. That's
Well, no, I know, but I my train of thought like just goes right off the tracks, and I'm like, well, sorry, all right.
So for anyone that has defaulted on their mortgage due to non-payments, right? These departments within lending companies don't really exist anymore because of the referendums that were put in during COVID.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, because there was...
Oh yeah, all the no non-foreclosure, like the
foreclosure. That's the word I'm looking for.
Right. The banks were not allowed to foreclose during COVID.
Weren't allowed. So because of that, they got rid of all of these departments. Well, if these departments aren't there, and slowly I think banks are starting to bring them back.
Sure.
But if you don't know that a house is foreclosed on due to non-payment, right?
Oh.
It's because we never paid your mortgage off. because that wire was intercepted by fraudsters.
Oh.
Then there's another mortgage that's put on record.
Right.
Well,
Oh,
you're now second in line because that first mortgage still needs to get paid off.
no kidding.
So that is probably the biggest threat for a seller, is having their mortgage payoff
Yeah.
be stolen by fraudsters, or their proceeds stolen by fraudsters.
Right.
What's great about working with Cohen is that you're protected from both of those through certified.
Perfect.
Honestly, if we didn't have certified, I don't know how we would sleep at night because of how many wires that we're constantly sending.
Right.
And I mean, I can tell 1,000 stories. We had a seller who was selling a piece of property in New Hampshire. Lived in Tennessee. He was a high-level executive CEO. He was supposed to be getting a FedEx check morning of closing. I get an email, Kyle, I would like a wire. Okay, strange. I did confirm it was his Gmail account.
Mm-hmm.
We sent him the certified. He failed. I get a call from our rep, Shaq. Shaq says, Kyle, we're not going to insure this wire. IP address is pinged from outside of the country in a place with hot for fraud. So it's like, okay, we're not going to send the wire. I'm calling Mr. Seller, emailing Mr. Seller. Mr. Seller was in meetings all morning, calls me back. It's not the happiest camper. Why am I blowing up his cell phone?
Right.
Well, I just wanted to confirm that you did indeed want a wire. No, Kyle, the check was supposed to be FedEx like we talked about. Keep going to your Gmail account. Sure enough, 6 emails that he sees from his sent file to us.
No
requesting
way.
wire, requesting wire, requesting wire. If we didn't have certified, that seller would have been out that money. And not that the seller would have been out, we would have had to pay it.
Right.
I may not be sitting with you here today. We may not exist as a company. So certified save us $600,000 in proceeds from this guy.
Wow.
Yeah.
So someone broke into his email or... Wow.
His email was compromised somehow, whether it was...
And they happened in...
And they were waiting, and they're smart. They're going to sit and they're going to wait. And they're going to know exactly when this transaction is happening. They're going to know the exact amount that he's getting in proceeds because they've read his Alta statement that we sent him in an email.
Oh my good Lord.
Yeah. So
Wow.
that extra layer of protection as a seller is so important. So what we always say...
Did he freak out?
Oh, he was like, oh my gosh, Kyle, thank you so much.
Right.
He was like, at first, because at first he was like, why the hell are you calling me?
Right,
and then by the end of the call, he was like, thank God you called me, and thank God you have this system, because if we didn't, again, he would have been fine. He would have made whole, but...
Yeah, but it would have taken lawsuits and whatever. Yeah, it just would have been a huge problem.
So we always say, whatever title company or attorney that you were using for your sale, make sure that you call them and ask them, what do you have in place to protect my funds and my proceeds? And if there is a mortgage payoff, what are you doing to protect my funds in a mortgage payoff situation?
Perfect.
And if they have good answers for you, great, use them.
Great. The other thing that I recently heard about, you reminded me when we talked about the pandemic, because people were able to defer payments during the pandemic, but they all were added to the back end. Right? So all of a sudden the payoffs are a lot more than a seller was thinking that they might be.
Yes.
I think another great reason to start this process early is because you may have forgotten, maybe not forgotten, but just sort of didn't occur to you that, oh shoot, like all of that stuff got tacked onto the end. So my proceeds could be tens of thousands of dollars different than what I had anticipated.
And by all means, we're going to check your payoff statement, but beforehand, before we get the order, absolutely. If you're a seller and you have money left on that mortgage, absolutely call your mortgage company and figure out how much money to give yourself an accurate estimate of what you think your proceeds will be as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Now let me ask you this, please. Is there anything I haven't asked you?
Gosh, these are all such great questions, and I chatted with my team about it as well. And we're all kind of the same thing, is making sure that all your paperwork ducks are in a row.
Right. Well, you made a really great point about trusts. A lot of people may have that trust kind of buried someplace. I
made it 30 years ago. We haven't seen it in 30 years.
Exactly. Right. So that's great. I think that the other example of having 5 or 6 trustees and having to sort of bring those people together, schedule that, because let's face it, scheduling is a big part of this and can be a huge problem. So I really appreciate the fact that you brought that up. So I think that's another great one.
Well, Austin, the agent that I'm working with on the personal sale for my friend, she made a contact card of all of the trustees and all of their information,
smart.
which is incredible. If you're working with a great listing agent, they'll do that for you. And then it just like, okay. So I literally just go down the line. They're good. They're good.
Right.
Just makes it that much easier. Now, in all of this trust paperwork as well, we always ask in a seller form. So when we get the order, you're going to get a link to fill out your seller forms, and it's just a fillable form. You're going to answer questions, and sometimes if it's a yes, you'll get brought to a different answer, or I'm sorry, different question. If it's a no, you get brought to a different question.
Sure.
But something that we always ask on that seller form is, do you have a bank account in the name of your trust?
Oh, fair. Oh, good point.
Because if you don't have a bank account in the name of your trust, we're just going to have to set up your proceeds a little bit differently, which is totally fine. It just adds an extra layer of something that you have to sign.
Okay.
But if you have a bank account in the name of your trust already, it just makes it that much easier for you.
Fair enough. Awesome. So how can people get in touch with you?
So you can get in touch with me directly at kwinston@cohenclosing.com. You can find us at cohenclosing.com as well. My social media, I'll be certainly commenting on all of these.
Do you mind if I share that?
Oh, please, please share mine.
If you had questions specifically, can I say that word specifically for Kyle? Then just look for his contact information and social links, which will be shared with this video.
Yep, absolutely. I love that, Mike. And I always just like to kind of clue in our company's motto, which is send us one and let us earn the rest. And I truly believe that you take a chance with someone new in title, we are going to earn the rest of that business through our customer service.
Right. Also, I don't know if I should bring it up, but there's a super secret thing going on. I heard you might be moving to Guilford.
Oh, yeah. Actually, probably by the time this video comes out, it won't be as secret, but we do have a new office space that we will be owning in Guilford. So look out for that grand opening, hopefully sometime soon.
Nice. Yeah. Look at me breaking big news on the pod. I love it. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Mike.
You're very welcome.